Good evening, everyone. Welcome to UTrade's Usapang Stocks, Economic Recovery, Trajectory, and IPO Play. For this episode, our speakers will talk about the upcoming MEDIC and SPNEC IPOs and discuss the advantages and disadvantages of investing in these companies. They will also share some fundamental and technical outlook about the PSE Index. So, without that, mga kaibigan, please join me in welcoming our speakers for tonight. Mr. Gabryle Aguila, Head of Research for Unicapital Securities Inc., and Mr. Cristopher Kiko San Pedro, Technical Analyst for Unicapital Securities Inc. Good evening! Kamusta po? Kamusta? Sir Gab, Sir Kiko?
Good evening, good evening.
Hello. Hi.
Ayan. Okay, ayan. I think nawala yung camera ni Sir Gab.
Right,
Ayan.
thanks.
Ayan, there you go. How are you
Alright,
po?
hello.
Kamusta ang ating
Okay naman.
Friday? Okay naman.
Correction day for the
kamusta
market.
naman? Meron ba? Meron? Ayan. I think si Kiko is just having a technical
Hello.
difficulties. Ayan.
Hello.
Hi, Kix.
Okay naman. Hi.
Ayan. Loud
Good
and
evening.
clear.
So yeah, medyo
Hello.
day to day, no, challenging, but yeah, let's see what Gabriel can teach us tonight, diba? Kasi yeah, we're on the road to economic recovery, no. The office, the trend right now is in Gabriel we trust, no, our new head of research. So good luck, Opa. So the floor is yours. So looking forward sa mga
Okay.
lessons for tonight.
Sige. Can you bring up my slide, please? Okay, so this is just a brief outlook on what we have on economic recovery trajectory. So the economy is reopening. We've shifted from the community quarantine policy to the granular lockdown policy. Okay, so why do we think this is a view that we'd like to include? We think that the granular lockdown policy seeks to avoid the community quarantine policies. So instead of giving us the ECQ, the MECQ, and these other quarantine measures that severely restricts economic activity, we see that granular lockdown policy limits that restrictions. Yeah, so instead of giving it to the entire Metro Manila, they isolate areas instead of doing it by cities. With that, kasi, instead of closing the entire economy where people can't go out to go to work or to do their recreational activities, especially now with the Christmas season, with a granular lockdown policy, it is not as restricted. It continues on, allowing business activity to prosper, at least for this Christmas season. No? So that happened earlier in November. It started after our Delta variant in August. And then towards October, we started shifting towards that, started at alert level 4, went into alert level 3, and then we went on November 5 to alert level 2. So again, currently we're at alert level 2. And then the outlook is sometime towards December or maybe January, we can start going into alert level 1, which will reopen more businesses. The trend of COVID has been going down in the past months. So if you guys remember, we were going at around 20,000 average, around 15,000 average at that time. But now we're doing around an average of maybe mga 2,000 to 1,500 cases per day. So while it's still high compared to the Delta variant start, it's still much lower already. And that's what gotten the government to shift from the community quarantine policies into the granular lockdown policies, especially with the drive in vaccination. And I think Metro Manila is going to experience a good drive for that in the start of December. Diba? They were already contemplating if it was going to be a holiday so that they can get more. We can get more vaccines rolled out into Metro Manila. We think that as part of the shift of the situation that's currently improved our outlook. Again, is behind the government drive to bring vaccines to the public. No? It's as far as I remember, we're already somewhere near the herd immunity status, at least for Metro Manila. So that's why, if you guys, to all the listeners, I'm sure, when you go out right now, you see all the activities are happening. There's a lot of people who are going out, celebrating the Christmas season, and it's reflective of the government moves to help ease our pandemic situation. So again, overall, this what our economic recovery trajectory has been greatly driven by the shift to the granular lockdown policy that departs from severely restrictive community quarantine policies that we had through the majority of the pandemic, and especially this last one when the Delta variant went up. And then, if you guys notice, in the past 2 months, the stock market has been going up. Why? So on top of the shift to the community quarantine policy to the granular lockdown policy, we also had a surprise GDP, which was around 7%. Of course, the percentage is higher than expected because you have to understand you're coming from a low base. But that also indicates that the trajectory is there. We're now starting to see a reversal in some industries now that there's a better outlook on the pandemic, and now that the economy is running a little running a little faster than it did before when we were locked down. Um, Also to note, a lot of regional analysts and our regional economic analysts, as well as local economic analysts, have started to upgrade their outlook for our GDP for 2022. They were currently looking at 3 to 4% levels at that time. Now we're looking at low 5 to high 6% levels, with some also looking at even 7% levels for next year. Uh, as far as fiscal policy is also concerned, um, BSP has keeps on echoing that they intend to keep interest rates low while they monitor the improvement of the economy over the next few quarters. Of course, that's also very much tied to any developments that may happen, given the pandemic. Well, as you all know, Delta variant was quite a surprise. Was quite a surprise for us. Led us to a third lockdown that nobody anticipated. At the same time, one of the key indicators that we're looking at that really supports the accommodative fiscal policy is that the Bureau of Treasury hasn't been following their program of their government borrowings. For November and for December, they had planned 200 billion in government borrowings, but they only registered 130 million in November, and have announced today that they only plan to borrow 70 billion for December. So that's a big slice from their plans. So on top of low interest rates, you're also seeing the Bureau of Treasury not even not even going for their targets of doing 200 billion and 200 billion. So why do we mention this? As you all know, when fiscal policy is accommodative, the rates are low, there's a lot more money in the system. And usually that excess of cash ends up in the stock market. Because when you invest in the stock market, there are more returns than there would be in treasury or in bonds. So that's one of the headwinds that we look at for what we've been mentioning. These are headwinds that we look at for the economic recovery trajectory. Sorry, tailwinds. When we look at our headwinds, what are headwinds? These are possible risks that we might incur. Um, one thing that we are currently monitoring is the development of the new variants. Delta, there's a surge in Europe, and now there's a new variant that's coming from South Africa. if you look at how Delta started, it's just also like also how COVID started. It had small beginnings in in China, for example, the original one. It had a small beginning in China, which eventually had contagion on the world. When the Delta variant went on its growth stage, it was just an isolated case in Europe, and eventually had contagion in different countries. So the one thing that we're looking for as a headwind, which might be a risk, if we experience another surge again, which may be due to the current surges in Delta in other countries. But at the same time, if the new South African variant becomes like a new Delta, because I am hearing reports that it's also resistant to the vaccines. And the way vaccines work naman, if a new variant does come, it will have another surge. But at the same time, it will also peak, and then it will also do its correction and die down. I'm sure a lot of people here know that there's a third round, so to speak, of booster shots. The way the science works for vaccines, it's just like your computer with your antivirus. So if you have an antivirus that was dated in 2012, you are not updated for 2020 types of viruses. Therefore, you will catch it. So currently, our vaccines are the booster shot was meant to address Delta, and if we look at the trend, we started the Delta variant problem around July. We're getting the booster shots now around November. In the event that a South African new variant comes in, you could look at it in the next 6 months to be addressed again by the vaccine makers. So at least in that way, we can look at it as a tailwind. There, the vaccine rollout and the vaccine updating of the vaccine is there. Primarily, that's our only headwind. A resurgence in cases is what will slow down the reopening of the economy. Otherwise, we can see that our country is trying to recover already from the pandemic. Now that we're getting vaccines and people are able to go out again, we don't have face shields anymore. A lot more, not just for recreation, but also for work activities. People are allowed now and have looser restrictions. So that's what's driving up the activity right now. So going on to our next point, so we'll go into sector outlooks for this. So given the reopening of the economy, of course, consumer will be highly benefiting from this. And we saw it in third quarter earnings. While a lot of consumer companies are still reporting net losses, we're seeing a lot of their net losses thinning out compared to last year. We're also seeing that siguro a good reaction for companies through the pandemic is that they've gone through a rationalization of costs. So we're seeing a lot of consumer stocks coming out right now with better margins that they've even had before pre-pandemic. Of course, but they had to think about it now. They had to cut out their excesses and then focus on their core business. So consumer, I think, is one of the sectors that will highly benefit. And you can track consumer improvement as the pandemic outlook improves. So as we register lesser cases, as let's say schools reopen, now you're gonna have a recovered market already from a sector that hasn't operated at all only on an online capacity over the past pandemic. So that's for consumers. Property, on the retail side, that's what we're also looking at, no? One of the spaces largely affected by the pandemic was the retail side and office leases, at least for those that can't shifted to a work from home style. On the retail side, we're starting to see some recoveries now. Some data figures we've picked up over the past past 2 months, show that businesses are operating between 50 to 80% of pre-pandemic levels already. Again, that's because of the looser quarantine restrictions, and the fact that people are getting more confident to go out given that they're now newly vaccinated. Um, with regards to residential property, you can start seeing this picking up. So how does this work? This works now as the economy reopens. People become more certain with jobs and job security. Some people may have been a little affected by the pandemic when they got stuck at home, and now that people think that there is a possibility of life just being stuck at home for more than a year, it would be a good move to invest into a bigger home, for example. So we see property on the residential and the commercial side to pick up around 2Q. Second half of 2022. So we're looking, as far as property is concerned, between the rest of 4Q 2021 and first half of 2022, we're trying to look at the retail side to recover, as well as commercial leasing side. Thirdly, for power, well, now that one of the things, for example, for Meralco, no, one of the segments affected was the commercial distribution of power, kasi a lot of offices closed down, a lot of retail like malls, they weren't operating at full capacity. But we did see a reaction naman on the residential side. The residential side went up, but we all know that commercial rates are higher than residential rates. So for power, at least, I think a good leading indicator for people to look at would be Meralco's performance on the commercial side. And from that, you can see where the trend is shifting. If the commercial side starts to pick up, you can be sure that business activity is already moving, because that means everybody is out, everybody's going to their offices, everybody's going to malls again, people are starting to hold events again. For banks, okay, the way banks work, so you have your retail loan book, and then you have your commercial loan book. Basically, we're starting to see an increase in the retail demand for banks. Part of this are credit card fees. There are a lot more credit card banks have experienced over the past pandemic, without their credit card fees, which would usually amount to around 15 to 17 billion per quarter. For the first 9 months. Without that, earnings would have been down. So we saw an uptick from the first quarter towards the third quarter of this year. We're starting to see people become more confident in spending again. And again, that's supported by the recovery trajectory from pandemic. We're starting to see people become more confident again in borrowing money. Now, commercial loan books will lag behind the retail. For our pandemic situation, the commercial loan book will lag behind the retail loan book. How we see that to move is as the retail sector borrows more money for personal consumer spending or for big ticket items like homes and cars, that will require businesses to get working capital to fund the recovering demand from the retail sector. So and that's also gonna make certain businesses see na, we can start borrowing more again for expansionary purposes na, because the retail demand is coming back. So that's why we think that banks, if you look at it, will really be one of the for us will really be one of the economic indicators of recovery. As you see banks' earnings recover from last year, and from this year going into next year, that's where you can see business activity is starting to pick up. So even if you get mixed signals from power or from property or from consumer, banks aggregate the entire economic situation uh, in their earnings. One of the big indicators that we see on as to why the banks themselves see that there's a better outlook for our economy is that the NPLs, their provision for losses, have been going down because their non-performing loans have also been going down. The big three banks are below 3% in NPLs, non-performing loans. So from all the loans that they have, 3% of that they've considered non-performing loans. Currently, the industry as a whole is operating at around 5% to 6% NPL. So with that, we don't consider just the big three banks or the listed banks. We're considering the entire banking sector as a whole. This is still a lot lower than the BSP's guidance of 7 to 9% for NPLs for over the year. Given exactly what they were looking at originally was 5 to 9. On the third quarter, some hints were looking at 7 to 9%. But with the reopening of the economy that was happening through the third Q, it was only registering at 4 to 5%. For the others, I guess telco has been up since the entire pandemic. As you all know, this has been a pandemic fighter. When everybody had to go home, everybody needed internet for their businesses and to be able to work and for their businesses. So it helped telco survive. Our outlook on telco is that, well, demand will still be there. One of the bigger drivers, I guess, would be Converge. Converge has been looking at the Vismin market. They've been expanding the news that we've been tracking for Converge is that over the past 4 weeks, they've been reporting a lot of completions of their submarine lines in the Visayas region, in Bicol, in Cebu. The latest was in Coron. So I think they're getting ready for a lot of connections starting with the first quarter of 2022 so that it will reflect as early as it can in their earnings. For telco, for Globe and for Smart, there's a lot of so they experience a lot of demand from the pandemic, but now that we're having a reopening of the economy, that demand might be in question. So what did these telco companies look at? They've already established their premise on the establishment of their e-money segment. So GCash and Smart Money. They're now including it into their valuations. They're getting more investors for that. So there's also a shift. And for e-money, I think the pandemic also taught us how important that was. So when nobody could go out to deposit at the banks, there was e-money to be able to complete transactions, pay your bills. So we think that for telco, the valuations that are driven right now by e-money are supported even after the pandemic. Okay, so at least that's for our sector's outlook. Last, we have some IPOs that are going to be coming out. We have MEDIC, and we have SPNEC, and we have our very own CREIT. Medilines, we're looking at a range of somewhere around 250 pesos to 260 pesos. We think that one of the biggest risks to MEDIC is that they only really have the government as their customer, and that their receivables turnover is and their inventory turnover is heavily tied to the government space. At the same time, having the government as their only main customer, should the government policies change, or should the new player come into the segment, maybe one that's unlisted, maybe one that's can afford more capital, they might face risks from there. So MEDIC, we think it's a good exposure for people to get into a new side of the health industry. But be wary of the headwinds that could come. Be wary of the risks. I guess just make sure you accept the risks before you try to go into it. For SPNEC, well, we'll focus more on it on our next Usapang stocks, no, Kiko, but they're just gonna give a little bit of an idea on this. It has no operating assets yet. It's raising funds to build its first power plant. So if we're to do an IPO right now, we might start to see earnings from it starting to reflect in the third quarter or fourth quarter, even or of 2022, even to the first quarter of 2023. It all depends on how fast they're able to build their how fast they're able to build their portfolio, their power plant. But there is one side that I can see for SPNEC to do over the next couple of years. They've recently acquired land, and they could eventually turn it. This is an opportunity for the company that we see. This is not their plans. They could eventually turn it into a REIT company because of the property. Which brings us to the next one, CREIT, Citicorp Real Estate Investment Trust. Citicorp, that's its business premise. It bought land and is currently leasing land and subleasing the leased land and leasing the bought land to power generation companies focused on solar, and that's how we're going to get our dividends from it. That's what's going to be generating the dividends from the company. It currently has several operating power plants already with some big players, AC Energy, working with them. And at the same time, one of the key things that we like about some of the power generation units that's in CREIT is that they were still able to get the FIT rate that's not being awarded anymore. But that for that one, we're looking at it at around January. For those who want to invest in a stock that gives you good dividend yields and does not give you so much risk in terms of volatility, we would highly recommend CREIT. Okay, well, that's for my part, Kiko and Riga. I hope that if you guys have any questions, you can answer them. But I hope that gives you guys an idea on where we're currently looking at for the stock market in the fourth quarter towards 2022.
Alright, ayan.
Ayos.
Maraming salamat, Sir Gab, no, for sharing the dami. Grabe. Sobrang,
Solid.
daming questions. Feeling ko nasagot na lahat ni Sir Gab.
Oh,
Pero
yeah.
syempre, of course, si Kiko, marami pang i-share si Kiko on a technical side. So, I think you may now share your screen, Kicks, if you have anything else to,
All right, let me share my screen. So that was a
Thank
very
you.
solid presentation, no? So
Mm-mm.
when it comes
Thank you,
to
Kiko.
fundamentals, that's it eh. That's a perfect package, you know. Sinabi nila Ate Gab a while ago what to expect in the next 3 to 6 months. And why you shouldn't panic on this new variant, you know? I think this is an opportunity to get in, no? All right. So tonight we're going to review the chart, no? So let's prepare for the worst case scenario given that the headwinds Opa Gab is telling us a while ago, no? So right now we're going to do on short-term side, no? We're going to review the short-term aspect, okay? What to expect in the stock market in the next 3 to 6 months as well, no? So I'm going to share with you some PSE economic recovery agenda and technical outlook. Okay, and then we're going to review some quick rundown or recommendations this month. No, last November 5 we held the Techni Talks. So we recommended 13 stocks. No, so how did it perform this month? No, and then I'm going to share a quick rundown on MEDIC IPO game plan. Okay, we're going to do some strategies later on. So how I did some tricks with all-day IPO, I'm going to share with you later. Okay. So let's first proceed with the PSE economic recovery technical outlook. So a while ago, Opa Gab told us, no, we came from a low base, no. We came from negative 17%, 11%, 8%, 3% last year. So technically, we bottomed out this last year when it comes to GDP growth rate, and we're now heading towards the positive territory. No, hopefully we can end the 5%, no, average 5 to 6%. Hopefully the government can achieve that target when it comes to the growth trajectory. No, looking on this GDP growth rate, this is our stock market. No, so it perfectly reflects, no, the growth rate of the GDP. No, so there is a positive correlation between the stock market performance, the GDP, the reopening of economy, and the lowering of the COVID cases. Okay, all right. So with the entry of the South African market, game over na ba? I think ngayon medyo po tayo. We close on the red today, no? So we close on the red today. We're down 1.2%, no? So let's review the chart. Okay. All right. So I'm going to do the dual screen, you know. So yeah, focus tayo on the chart. Okay. All right. So tonight I'm going to share with you my volume profile indicator. Okay. So this is the one I'm using to determine the demand and supply of a particular stock, of a particular index. Okay. So in layman's term, this chart tells us yung demand and supply. Demand, where the buyers are. Supply zone is your resistance zones. Nasaan yung mga sellers. Okay? So this chart perfectly explains to us nasaan yung potential resistance ng market, supply zone, nasaan ang demand zones. Let's prepare for the worst. Let's prepare for volatility next week. Possible mag-correct ang market natin. So nasaan ang demand zones, nasaan ang support zones natin. Saan tayo mag-aabang to buy the dip? Okay? Alright, so basically I don't think it's game over, no? I think this going to be a perfect opportunity for us to add on dips. Okay? Because we've been doing pretty well since we bottom out last July. So I think this is a healthy opportunity for us to get in. Okay, the only thing na babantay lang natin yun is yung timing, di ba? This is what we do in short-term perspective, the market timing. Okay, so if you're going to time the market, you're going to do sa buy and sell strategy, so syempre, you need to know nasaan yung demand zones and supply zones. Okay, so tonight I'm going to teach you saan yung mga potential demand and supply zones looking at the volume profile indicator. Okay, so I'm using volume profile indicator in this one. So this is our demand zone. So worst case scenario, we're going to price in this Delta variant threat and hopefully hindi makapasok sa bansa natin. Okay? All right. Hopefully we can contain this one through strict lockdown measures, no? Strict quarantine measures. Plus, I think the vaccination rollout naman should help us to kumbaga may shield tayo against this threat, no? Okay, so the demand zones I expect, no? So expect here. Somewhere around 7209, ito yung first line of defense natin. 72 level, 7209, and this one. 6,000 and 6,941 levels. So this is a very critical point, no? Okay? This is very critical point, this red line for our demand zones. Hopefully ito yung support zones natin sa market. Okay? 72, 7,064. Worst case scenario, 6,900 levels. Okay? So I have illustrated here yung Fibonacci natin, Fibonacci projections. Okay? So coming from a resistance zones natin na 7475 levels. So ito yon. Ito yung origin ng Fibonacci projections. And yung base natin yung May 2021 of this year at somewhere around 6,080 support zone. So ito yung Fibonacci projection na nakikita natin. We have support at 7143, 6916, 0.618. Worst case scenario possible 6756. Or we might even go 6 levels. Hopefully, hindi na umabot dun. Okay, so what's here and target? No? So basically, if we break out of this supply zone, napakatindi niyan eh. Kaya we need to box this one out. Kailangan ma-knock out natin itong 7475 levels. Okay, particularly if matrigger yung Santa Claus rally after this IPO SAP. Okay, the market has been very lethargic eh. Kasi, ayun eh, Opagab discussed a while ago, meron tayong upcoming IPOs, no? SPNEC, MEDIC IPO. So, possible, it's trying to sap some liquidity on the market when it comes to retail investors because they have to pay na. They have to pay na these IPOs. Plus, next week, we're going to have some MSCI rebalancing. So, expect movements on Monday no? Possible may mga foreign buying or selling that could influence the market, the index as well. So let's see kung may outflows tayo. Okay? I believe kasi ang inflows natin expected at ASEAN and Mondnisi, no? They're going to be included na sa MSCI. Okay? So if we break out of these supply zones, expect possible 7.5, 7.8, and hopefully we head towards near 8,000 year end. Okay, but right now this is going to be our range. Okay, in anticipation to the volatility of the South African variant. So expect support at 7.2, 7,064. Worst case scenario, hopefully it's 6.9 levels. No? So anticipate some opportunities here para makapag-buy the dips tayo. Okay? Anticipate some opportunities to buy the dip. Okay? All right. So the trend is your friend until it bends, I believe. No? So the trend is your friend until it bends. Okay, so we're I believe no uptrend na uptrend tayo based on the weekly chart here. So we have more fun at 6.9 to 7.1 support zones. Okay, 7.5 to 7.8 resistance zones based on our volume profile indicator here, based on the supply zones that we're seeing here. No? Ayan, ito, kitang-kita natin. Ito yung potential na resistance natin as we head towards December, no? As we head towards the Santa Claus rally. So what's our strategy? I strongly recommend to buy the dip, no? Go long on quality stocks, no? Okay, focus dun sa mga uptrend, sa mga undervalued stocks that we are recommending, no? O pag Gab is a great research team, nag-recommend sila ng value stocks, value play, those undervalued stocks that you can buy, no? And then the trader's game plan, daily reports should give you some idea naman sa short-term trades. No? What are the healthy stocks that we can anticipate to buy on the dip and sell on distance zones? Pwede tayo mag-trading opportunities yan for short-term gains. Okay, so November 2021 technical review. No? So last month, no? So may I know sino yung mga nag-attend ng Technitalks? Raise hands naman. Kumusta, guys? Yun. Alright. Okay, welcome back. Thank you. So last month, no, so we recommended, no, last modified to November 5, no. So last month we recommended 13 stocks, no. So ito yung mga recommendations natin, ano yung mga pwede nating bilhin. And yeah, thank God, no, we did well. This month has been very good to us, given by the low volume ng low cases count ng COVID cases, no. Low volume na sila, the vaccination program rollout. Good job sa government, no? Nararamdaman natin ngayon yung vaccination rollout kasi we're doing below 5% positivity rate na in the last 14 days, no? The cases are below 2,000 na, 1.5. So hopefully magtuloy-tuloy, no? So based on the 13 stocks that we recommended, no? So ALLHC, P-Gold, and ALLHC, P-Gold, and EMP lang didn't perform well. Pero some did double digits like Bloomberry, Cebu Pacific naka-recover as well, no? Globe and Globe PLDT did well din, you know. So Globe naging 13% yung return niya this month. Mega World REIT is doing pretty well naman. Chill lang siya, 1.22%. Mega World 2%. Metrobank 4%. And Keepers Holdings FO, no? So kumusta? I think nakikita niyo naman siya, no? So those who enjoyed profits 10% up, nakabenta sa 170 and up. Congratulations. Mga FPP FOO holders, no? Basically, you're up 24% now. No? Mga those people holding their stock positions at 12 pesos, congratulations to those who subscribe, no? So looking forward, we're going to have some Technitalks naman next month, no? So watch out for the new recommendations ng UTrade, no? And next year we have more surprises with you because we're going to fuse technicals and fundamentals next year. I'm looking forward to work with Opagab, no? Sa mga recommendations as well. So abangan niyo yan. As a UTrade client, that would be your benefit, no? So magkakaroon kami ng mga future webinars, no, to deal with these stocks recommendations. Okay? So let's have a quick rundown sa MEDIC IPO game plan. Okay? So it's a relatively small IPO, no, compared to the previous one, 'di ba, yung SGP, yung DDMPR, the other ones, 'di ba? So just 1.8 billion shares, assuming 825 million firm shares were given, kumbaga na oversubscribed talaga siya. I heard it's oversubscribed by 2 times institutionals, and syempre expect niyo na yan sa mga brokerage, given 2 to 3 million lang per worth per shares per brokerage ang available, no? It's a small IPO, it's a market cap 6.3 billion only. So when it comes to small IPO, alam niyo na yan. So it's Jupiter-oriented, it's retail-oriented IPO. So congratulations, no? I believe mahirap makakuha, pero pag you were able to get some shares, so thank you na. Pasalamat na rin tayo kasi we can play this one. And hopefully, meron tayong Christmas surprise, no? Okay? Kasi I believe kasi pag ganyan magaan na IPO, so expect nyo pure demand play ang pwede mangyari. I won't rule out a same scenario like all day, no? Na pwede mag-ceiling siya. Okay? So, syempre, so i-discount din natin, possible. Baka may bear scenario tayo given may COVID resurgence as well. Okay? Pero pag ganyang small IPO, it's 1 to 2 billion. Expect some fireworks, no? Hopefully, we can enjoy this one. We can sell on the second day or first day pagka happy na kayo sa profit. Okay? So, again, the trading mindset, okay? What's your time horizon? Are you long or short term? Okay? Always, ask yourself, no, pagka before the IPO, if you have shares, ano yung strategy nyo? Are you long term or short term on this one? What percent, if you're short term, what percent of profit are you going to sell? Are you happy with 5%? Are you happy na ba pag nag-ceiling siya on the first day? Are you happy with 5 or 20% if ever hindi mag-ceiling the first day? And then what percent of stop loss are you going to sell? What if it goes below the IPO price? Are you going to cut loss na ba? Okay? So, kailangan, it all depends on your strategy na. It all depends on your calibration, no? Kung ano yung gusto nyong underlying levels to execute this one. Okay? But for me, this is my recommended strategy based on what I'm doing in the previous IPO. No? So, I'm going to share with you 3 strategies, no? So, conservative strategy, okay, you take profits on open. Whatever you get on the opening price, you sell it right away. You're happy with it. May pangham ka na. Hindi ka ng pang Noche Buena on Christmas, di ba? Kumbaga, you can consider it as 14th, 15th, or 16th month pay mo, may bonus na kayo. Okay? Bonus round na itong IPO na ito. Given you were able to write FGP, Keeper, yung all day. Kumbaga, may bonus round yun na lang itong MEDIC. No? Given may winning streak kayo. Okay? The second one is an aggressive strategy. Okay? So you're going to hold and wait for the closing price before deciding to take profits or hold. Okay? So you can hold, especially if the stock closes above the IPO price. No? Pwede niya pa i-hold. You wait for the next day. Doon na lang tayo bebenta. Okay? You can also do some stop loss execution if the stock closes below the IPO price. So you sell it right away. Doon sa pre-close pa lang, benta niyo na siya. So that's an aggressive strategy. You're going to let the market play in the next 3 to 4 hours before deciding to sell sa closing price. Okay, so the third strategy is the pure demand play strategy. Given it's a small IPO, I won't rule out another scenario like all day wherein feeling to talaga, ang daming gustong humabol sa kanya, maraming gustong bumili. Okay? So what are you going to do? It closes on the ceiling. So yeah, you just have to watch the bid side. Okay, you just have to watch the bid side. If this is going to be a pure demand play, bantayan nyo lang yung bid side. Dapat 100 million yun, 300 million palagi yung bid side. As long as it stays there, you hold it. Okay? You hold if the ceiling on the first day supported by the bid side of more than 100, 200 to 300 million average, dapat hindi dapat siya gugo. Okay? You sell on the second or third day pagka hindi na siya nag-ceiling. So that's your pure demand play strategy. Okay, so you're expecting to enjoy at least 50% and up, no? Kung pure demand play ang gagawin yung strategy. Hopefully, kung mag-ceiling siya. Okay? However, yeah, may risk factors tayo. No? I don't want you to expect agad na sure ceiling ito. Okay? Siyempre, may risk factors pa rin involved, and the market will always tell us if we are right or wrong. The market will price in everything, the buyers and the sellers. Okay? Okay, hindi porket na it's a small IPO, sure ceiling na. Okay? The market will decide pa rin. Okay? Kaya dapat prepared kayo sa bullish and bearish scenario. Okay? So we still have some short-term bearish sentiment to be influenced by the underlying COVID cases. Ayun na yun. So ito na, baka will the South African variant enter our country? Before IPO, we have 2 weeks to pray. Okay? We have 2 weeks to pray na hopefully maging mahigpit government natin sa quarantine measures and travel bans. No? Okay, so company updates and competitors that could affect the medium to long-term profitability. A while ago, Opagab told us, no, given yung competitive advantage lang niya is nasa government contracts lang. What if magkaroon siya ng kalaban, no, that can outbid him, no? Okay? And then macroeconomic news and global events that could affect. Ito na yun. Siyempre, meron pa rin possible na mga bad news that could affect the investor sentiment come IPO day. Lahat matatangkot, lahat magbibenta na lang. So, if the supply will be greater than the demand, expect nyo, medyo magiging tricky and hindi yan magsisiling. Okay, tandaan nyo palagi, demand and supply play lang tayo palagi sa market. Okay, so hopefully more buyers than the sellers. Okay, so good luck to your IPO game plan. Okay, sa MEDIC. Thank you very much. And yeah, let's proceed sa Q&A. Thank you.
Ayan, maraming salamat, Kiko. Now, I think we can move on to the Q&A session. And a lot of our viewers are asking, simula pa lang doon sa presentation ni Sir Gab. Ayan. Now, Sir Gab, I think this question is for you. What will be the status now of the stocks as there is a new variant from the South Africa? Or you may also, Kicks, kung meron kang gusto i-add.
Sure. Opa Gab, go muna.
Well, status. I think this is a wait and see situation, no? Kiko, I'm sure you agree with me.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait for an actual incursion of the variant. It should register here and it should pick up in speed first before we start to see it any risk factor. Before we take it more seriously as a risk factor. I think that's one of the reasons why our market went up earlier in October. That was investors with a positive sentiment fueled by the reopening of the economy. And also, that was also their sentiment on the third quarter earnings. When third quarter earnings came out, it was generally positive. But now you can see the resistance is at 7,400. The resistance is at 7,400. That's also already pricing in the risk that we're starting to see given the variants that are coming out there. The Delta surge and then now this new South African variant. So I think the status now is a good wait and see. We think that at current valuations, it's already been rationalized to track the current progress of our economic recovery. When we look at our valuations right now, we're not trading way ahead of 2022. We're trading around towards the first half of 2022. So as far as that's concerned, wait and see lang. We'll have to see how this variant reacts, how it affects our country. And if it actually gets here and then we end up having another lockdown, that's what will negatively affect our valuations right now. But as far as we're concerned, if you look at it lang it's moving forward and that we're recovering, in the event that the Delta surge and the South African variant does not affect us, we are generally on track towards economic recovery.
Right.
Ayan. Nice.
Solid.
How about you, Kicks?
So I think I think we have to be more talaga. We have to be instead of trying to predict or outpace the market, you have to react na lang talaga. Kasi sometimes being genius ahead of the market, mahirap eh. Diba? Mahirap pa din yung ganun. Kailangan talaga more on a reaction play tayo. And you have to prepare palagi talaga sa bullish and bearish scenario. Okay, a while ago, I presented some bearish scenario for you to watch out yung support zones based on the volume demand based on the previous demand zones na nag-break out siya supported by heavy volume. So hopefully nandun yung support zones natin, 6,900, 7,000 levels, no? And ang critical factor here, are we going to have Santa Claus rally, no? Yun pa yun eh. And the January effect. So that we can break out of this 7,475 resistance. So yun ang mga dapat abangan natin the next 2 to 3 months. And yan, election season play pa. So expect natin may mga consumer play tayong may enjoy, no? And marirecommend ng yung research natin. Okay, ako generally I'm bullish, no? Even if we head towards 6-9 levels, so I think you can do kumbaga, opportunity to get in anticipation towards the January effect next year. Kasi yeah, we're fully vaccinated naman eh. I think talaga we have to wait and see muna ano ba talaga yung effect nitong bagong variant, no? But the
I
fact
think
na
the
we are
key,
yeah.
sorry, Kiko,
Mm,
I think the key, just to add to that, I think one of the
mm,
leading indicators that will help our investors here is to
mm,
keep on tracking pandemic numbers and pandemic movements.
yeah,
So
totoo.
track how it will go on the regional
Mm,
side, if there's any
mm.
contagion towards here. If our exposure is limited to that, then it's very good for us. It's very
Yeah.
good for our economic recovery trajectory.
For today, yeah, we're below 1,000, no? 800 na naman. So, yeah, we did well. Okay naman yung
Mm.
data today. Hopefully,
Mm.
yeah, hopefully it stays there.
All right, thank you so much. So next question. Hello po Sir Gab and Kiko. What is your take on Sirtech's follow-on offering?
Okay. Surtech, I'm positive on that, no? Uh, More than 50% of our economic output for our exports for our GDP for our GDP is electronics actually, and a huge part of that is semiconductors, which is pretty much their product. Because of the pandemic over the past 2 years, there's been a lot of demand for semiconductors as people went into a work from home setup, and that's driven tech to be more optimistic on their demand for their products. So for Tech FOO, I think it's a very stable company. It's going to fund a part of their expansion capacity to produce more semiconductors. Even when you go post pandemic, I think the demand is going to be there. It's just that the pandemic accelerated that demand level, where where tech was seeing it around 4 to 5 years from now. During 2019, when that demand, tech was seeing it to be happening around 4 to 5 years from 2019. It happened within a year. So yeah, I'm optimistic for tech of FOO. What about you, Kicks, for as far as trading is concerned?
When it comes to trading right now, medyo consolidating lang siya at the low end, no? Let's see.
Yeah, I guess
So,
no. Tech has traditionally not been that volatile.
talagang yun ang concern dito eh.
Yeah, this is you'll have high frequency traders, and you have people who are really just interested in investing in stocks that have good fundamentals. Tech would be one of those issues that we are looking
Medyo
at.
ano pa siya eh, medyo downtrend for me. However, hopefully nandito tayo sa bottom end na. Hopefully dito
Yeah.
na sa 4 pesos yung bottom end, no? Pero kung trading opportunities will be concerned, wait muna natin ma-break out dito ng 450, 480 levels. Pero if you're planning to do some position trade strategy or bottom out play, let's see kung
You know
pwede
that
na rito.
that downtrend that was affected by the supply chain crunch more than the demand for their semiconductors.
Yeah,
That's what's
nahirapan.
been
Possible ito,
extending
no?
their receivables. It's not
Yun
that
lang.
there's no demand.
Okay, let's see. So, yun ang trading side ko. Yeah, trading side, wait and see muna ako to have more breakout opportunities pa rito. Kasi, yeah, mukhang pwede pang bumalik dito sa 390, 380 area. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Now, next one is for Monde, your opinion, Kuya Kiko, about 180 days lock-up lifting sa INSTI stocks. And ano yung
Okay.
mga possible inclusion sa PSEI?
Okay, so Gab, correct me if I'm wrong, di ba? Some insiders or institutionals are barred 6 months to trade eh. Particularly coming from an IPO, right? No? So I think yun yung aantay niya, yung overhang. No? Pero 6 months pa naman, ilang months na ba si Monde since the IPO? No? Kailan ba IPO niya? Teka, double check na natin. Nag-IPO si Monde. Ito based on the chart. Yeah, nung May pa. So yeah, I think ito na yun. Mukhang pwede na sila magbenta anytime kung May, no? Ngayong November, yung end of the month, no? Kung December onwards, mukhang pwede sila magbenta. So expect, possible magkaroon niya ng potential supply zones natin, resistance zones, no? If ever magbenta sila. Pero rest assured, bantayan yung disclosures because kailangan yan merong disclosures na i-submit itong company para sa kung magbebenta tong mga lock-up shares, no? However, I think when it comes sa volume kasi ni Monde, it's a potential candidate talaga sa PSEI. However, we have to wait until next year kung isang review no. Kasi ganyan na ganyan si Ate nun talagang malaki yung volume niya everyday. Potential candidate to for next year. Kaya if you have IPO shares, I think long term yun na to. I don't think naman nababalik to sa below 12 pesos I think nasa range na siya ngayon between 15 to 18 pesos, no? Support and resistance zones, no? And then hopefully ma-price in na yung coin. I think yun ang headwind niya ngayon, yung coin gab, no? Nahihirapan sila i-market yung coin products, no? So hopefully ma-price in na natin lahat to ngayong third and fourth quarter next year. Maayos nila yung marketing strategy na mag-focus na lang sa other products, no? So yun, i-price in na tong sa coin. I think positive pa naman sila ngayon, no? Flat. I think it's flat pala, no? Flat 1% lang yung net income. So, let's see kung ano yung fourth quarter results nila.
Okay, ayan. Thank you so much. I think we can entertain last 2 questions para at least we have more time for some UTrade announcements. And first question is ICTSI is a good investment for long term?
Oh, yeah. ICTSI in 2009 was, I think, around 11 pesos lang ata that time. It's grown since then.
100 na.
It's been premised around the international business. So as you see that the world economy getting better, you can hear like they can pick up from it. At current valuations, make sure it's a long-term view. I guess don't expect volatile trading from it. As we recover again more in the pandemic, so I think it's trading below pre-pandemic levels. As we recover more, then their earnings are definitely gonna go higher and lower the PE multiples. So look for the dips that you can get it at for a long-term perspective. My answer is yes.
Okay. Thank you, Sir Gab. How about you, Kicks?
Yeah, perfect. Ano yan? Magandang recommendations din yan. Yung ICTSI. Because looking on the chart here, no? So, downtrend ba yan? Uptrend? Downtrend, no? Uptrend, no? So, kitang-kita natin na uptrend yung chart. So, we're having some resistance lang here at 213, yung 52-week high niya. However, looking at the Fibonacci, I'm looking forward this one to target 200 pesos next year, 231, no? So, logistic talaga So, yun ang importante dyan North Harbor ba to, Gab, no? North Harbor, tama, no? Si ICTSI. So, alam mo na. So, saan ba papasok yung mga goods and services? Sa ports, di ba? So, I think makaka-ride to sa economic recovery natin. Lalo na consumer-driven economy tayo. So, I won't be surprised kung mag-230 to based on the fibs, no? 230 to 290 levels. Pero long term yan, hindi yan rocket ship na. So you just have to wait the economic recovery na kumbaga ma-enjoy pa natin next year. No? Hopefully wala nang surge.
I think if you're going to go into ICT, you monitor our imports and exports levels. As it grows, as those numbers grow, you can be sure that they'll be exposed to that. So if you're going to be investing into ICT, you look at that look at that indicator for the economy.
Net exports, noted on.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. Now for our last question, will we see a spillover in the drop of in the global markets now? Will foreign funds pull out now that Dow Jones is down 800 points as of writing, and oil is also down 6%?
The Dow Jones Industrial Average and all US indices have been hitting all-time highs for the past month and a half. So I think that's a much-needed correction for them. I don't think that there's much of a contagion that's gonna go towards us. If anything that could affect us is that the markets, the US markets and US investors have received the extension of their incumbent BSP Philippines. US Federal Reserve head, si Powell. They received it well. And I think that because they're still also at the same time as our BSP, they're still looking at an accommodative fiscal policy. It may attract a lot of investors to actually shift to the US markets, because there's more returns there, as far as an investor perspective, as a foreign investor perspective is concerned. But then again, the US markets comes with a lot of risk compared to the Philippine market, just by its fundamentals. The US markets have short trades, have derivatives. There's a lot of things there's a lot of aspects that affect the value of their trading. Whereas here in the Philippines, why foreign investors like us, it's a simple buy and trade market, buy and sell
Long
market.
market lang tayo.
Yeah. Sometimes, if you look at these mga spikes in US markets, you can be sure that there are traders capitalizing on negative news to short out their stocks. That's why they're very active and they're very sensitive to news and drivers.
Yep.
But at the same time, again, despite the pandemic and despite surges around in neighboring countries, they're hitting all-time highs, as if the pandemic never happened. So the correction, I think, is healthy for them.
Okay. Ayan. Kicks, do you think tama?
Yeah, trade volatility kasi siya. So, long and short market, pagka nasa tuktok gusto lahat mag-short, no? So then they're gonna buy on the lows. They're gonna sell on the high, buy on the low. Kasi tayo sa Philippine market, buy low, sell high lang. That's our limitation. Wala pa rin tayong shorting, no? We're still waiting for the guidelines, no? So I think talaga So game over na ba? No. I think the game plan right now is to be contrarian. Kasi all of my missed trades was not being a contrarian. Nung bumaba yung market, masyado natakot ako, nagpanic ako. Okay, so we have to be contrarian because we can now live with the virus. The market can already live with the virus. So yung volatility, panic part ng game plan yan. So syempre, kumbaga, wag ka magpanic. Pag lahat nagpapanik, abangan mo sila matapos yung panic nila. Doon kayo bumili. So yun, it pays to be contrarian in this kind of market right now that we have, no? Lalo na kung alamin namang uptrend ka, if the trend remains sure trend. So abang lang tayo sa support zones, no? So we don't have to be kumbaga may influence tayo na nagpapanik, bad news, blah blah blah. Wala pa nga sa Philippines eh. Kumbaga lang yan nagsi-short lang yung mga yan. Magugulat ka, pick up na naman yan. So yun lang naman yun down ng 1%, 2%, pero magugulat ka, may intraday recovery mamayang 3 AM. So yun, that's how it goes sa market ng US sa foreign. Yung volatility talaga nila sobrang extreme compared to us. So yeah, expect nyo next week may fund movements, no Gab, no, yung MSCI, no. So yeah, expect nyo may volume tayo sa Monday, month and window dressing plus MSCI rebalancing, no. So I'm looking forward to that. Pag may nag-panic selling, nakaabang ako sa pre-close. Lalo na kung blue chip. Lalo na video, inaabangan ko yan kung may panic selling sa Monday.
I was starting to see it, no? So that parang US futures and oils plunges new COVID variant fears slam global markets. Again, this is a shorter's dream news. No? Babagsak yun,
lang sila yan.
Nakapanic sila dyan, short tayo ng stock. So kaya bagsak yan. So I don't think that we'd immediately feel contagion. I think we would feel contagion if the Delta variants and the South African variants actually reaches our shores.
Oh, totoo. So let's see. Wait and see pa din, tama. We don't have to be we don't have naman na unahan natin yung market. So it's more on reaction strategy tayo ngayon. So we have to be prepared lang palagi sa scenario planning natin. Thank you.
All right. Sige. Thank you so much, Sir Kicks and Sir Gabs. Now, for those who weren't able to answer the questions, rest assured na sasagutin po namin yan by next week. Yan. So, send lang kayo ng questions until we end this webinar. But before that, allow me to share some UTrade advisory. Now, please be advised, everyone, that we have been receiving inquiries and complaints in relation to a certain UTrade International Inc. We would like to inform that UTrade International Inc. is not any way connected or affiliated to UTrade by Unicapital Securities Inc. We only use our official logo in all communications, advisories, and marketing campaigns. Any other entity using the name UTrade with logo or mark other than the UTrade official logo has not been authorized by and is not in any way related to Unicapital Securities Inc. And for more questions and concerns, you may email us at utrade@unicapital-inc.com. Thank you.